What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Body Lock. It's your man Ant Walker, joined by my good friend and colleague, Mr. Matthew Wells. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, doing wonderful on the tail end of Black History Month here.
Oh yeah, what a fine month it is. Speaking of Black History Month, when the UFC started having their Black History Month segments, I kind of knew at some point we were going to get the bullshit. I knew something was brewing that was going to really annoy me at the very least, piss me off at the worst, by the time this 28-day period was over. And while they did not disappoint, while I did find it humorous that the first Black History Month tribute was to Daniel Cormier and Jim Brown for being the only two black commentators in the promotion's history, and how they went from the first event with Jim Brown and then all the way to the event that week of Daniel Cormier, and this was representing, black commentating. That I found that humorous and just like, wow, you guys didn't think this went through. Well, I guess a little less thinking was going on. Michael Chandler, UFC lightweight, former Bellator champion, was featured as someone to honor for Black History Month because he has adopted a black son. Now, the first thing I want to say before we get into it, because yes, we will get into it. If I know the comments are probably already raging like these two are back at it. Yes, we're here because they keep giving us reasons to be. It is what it is, fam. The first thing I do want to say is, like, I find it commendable to adopt a child. I think that's a wonderful thing, regardless of race, to adopt a child and give a child who otherwise would have had a tougher life, one way or another, however you slice that. But to open up your heart and open up your home to someone else's offspring is a beautiful thing. And I don't want to point at Michael Chandler as a bad guy for adopting a son that is not of his ethnicity. Don't want to do that at all. He deserves credit for being a father to someone that he has not biologically created. So let's get that out there. Now let's get to the shits, Matt. So you tell me what your initial reaction was when that piece aired.
Okay, to be honest, when it first aired, obviously it came on. This was an event that had a lot of filler material, right? Because fights were going by quick. It was a hell of an event to watch. A lot of quick fights, a lot of knockouts, a lot of spectacular moments, right? I was in and out of the room quite a bit. Okay, so I'm already like just used to like, okay, that was a quick fight. It's going to be another 15 minutes of filler. I'm doing stuff around the house as I'm watching the fights, right? So I see the Michael Chandler thing pop up. I'm like, all right, like they're doing Michael Chandler filler or whatever. I get up out of the room and walk off. Like not because I see Michael Chandler on the screen, because it's like, okay, it's filler material. So I'm gonna go do some stuff, come back, and I come in and out of the room a couple of times, and I see they're talking about his child that he's adopted. I'm like, yeah, like we've seen the story again. Like I thought they were rehashing old stories because they showed an old story from Derek Lewis about his Lamborghini that he bought 2 years ago. Like they were scraping for material. So in and out of the room a few times, and then I come back to see a couple of tweets. I think it was from Andreas Hale, who tweeted out first and talked about, they actually made this like a Black History piece. And I was like, wait a second. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. So I rewound my, ESPN Plus feed and watched it in entirety from that point. And sure enough, they somehow positioned this as a Black History piece. Wow. So then I immediately thought back to the email that they blasted out before February came out to all the media, a press release talking about how they were going to acknowledge Black history, celebrate Black history, right? If I could read an excerpt from this real quickly. Las Vegas, UFC, the world's premier mixed martial arts organization, today announced the launch of its month-long celebration of Black History Month. UFC's campaign will commemorate Black History Month by acknowledging the achievements made by African American and Black UFC athletes throughout the organization's history. Which Black athlete was featured in this piece? Which African American athlete? Which UFC? No, it was Michael Chandler, a white guy, in a story where they positioned his adopted child as a token, essentially, to get off this feel good story to appease the white audience, right? Because we're in a time where obviously racial tensions are at an all-time high, coming from the previous presidential administration who stoked those flames quite a bit. So whoever the decision makers were at the front of this office decided, hey, let's not, I guess, go with an interview or a piece on a black fighter that may have been living these struggles or can speak to these things that's been going on in America. Let's go with a feel-good story that will appease the white audience. And let's not touch on BLM. Let's not talk about protests and riots or anything like that. Let's not talk about Tyron Woodley, who lived that stuff in Ferguson, right? Let's not go down that road. Let's not interview or do features on, I don't know, the tens of black athletes that we have on our roster. Let's go with Michael Chandler, who saved a black baby by adopting him. And like you said, that's a very commendable thing. It absolutely is. But the way that this story was positioned, you know, if you look at it through a different lens, it makes it kind of feel like, oh, he took on the burden of adopting a black child in this day and age. Like, no. This story on its own is a beautiful story, like you said. It is not a story that belongs anywhere near a Black History Month celebration, because nothing about this says Black history. It's a child who doesn't even know to tell his own story yet. He doesn't know his own history yet. He's too young. So what about this has any connection to Black history other than the skin that he walks around in? I'm very confused by that. I want to know, like, who made the decision to let this air and how it came out.
You know what? I'm glad that you are trying to highlight, you know, who made that decision. And it just goes to show you something that we say a lot. And a lot of people want to pretend like this isn't an important thing, but representation matters. It matters who is sitting in these boardrooms making decisions. If there was a single black person in that room that had half a brain, this doesn't happen. There's someone in that room to say, hey, this is really stupid. Let's pull the plug on this idea. Get that out of here. If you put that piece on, say he gets booked to fight Justin Gaethje next or whatever the case may be. Yes, roll that piece out. That makes perfect sense to put in a promo package leading up to his next fight in any other month. You know, but to have Michael Chandler, who had absolutely no association to this card whatsoever, to be put in this Black history spotlight made so little sense. It's so ignorant that it feels deliberate. It doesn't feel like just an oversight. It just feels like active stupidity, which is the worst kind of stupidity, if you ask me. Like, there's so many things that the UFC could highlight that would shine light on Black America or Black culture, or highlight moments in the UFC of significance to Black athletes. Maybe do some sort of brief retrospective on Rashad Evans versus Rampage, which, if I'm not mistaken, was the first all Black main event. Do something about, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, John Jones versus either Rashad Evans or Rampage Jackson was the first all Black title fight. I can't remember which one of those fights came first. How about UFC 214, when you had 3 Black champions at the top of that card? You had John Jones, Daniel Cormier, and Tyron Woodley there. How about UFC 235, where you had an all Black title fight and an all Black title fight in the co-main event? These are very simple ideas that you and I just sit here and spitballed for about 30 seconds. And that was a ton better than what people who get paid a lot of money to think of these ideas came up with to shove down our throats Saturday. I think there is I'll say it as I said on my podcast that I recorded just a few hours ago, because I can't think of a better way to phrase this. Shutting the fuck up is a unique talent. It is a skill that is underrated and something that should be mastered. If you don't have anything useful to contribute as far as highlighting Black history, maybe shut the fuck up. Just a thought. Like, I would suggest to whoever uh, said, "Hey, this video is a good idea. Let's put this out." Go to the gym right now. Put on your gi. Train. Train hard. Get your black belt and shutting the fuck up, please. That's the only art you need to be mastering. Is shutting all the way the fuck up. And forgive me for speaking so crudely, but I feel very crudely right now. I felt really raw watching that. Of all the Black fathers, if you want to highlight fatherhood, parenthood, as a Black father, that's something I hold very near and dear to who I am. And there's so many good fathers in the UFC that happen to be African or African American.
Yeah.
Kamaru Usman brought his gorgeous little daughter into the cage with him when he won the belt. Man, that's a feel good moment. I've sat once I helped engineer Tyron Woodley and Dean Thomas's old podcast, and hearing Tyron Woodley on the phone with his children, and like, oh man, that's a guy who really cares about his family. Daniel Cormier, who, the daddest man alive. Black fatherhood. Like, there are so many different avenues you can go down that don't involve the white savior trope.
There's a ton of them. And even if you don't want to stick with the athletes, but we know that obviously this is a promotional piece to push one of the athletes that they want to stay in the limelight, right? And some of those decisions may come up higher than just the UFC offices, or they have people that they want to push, and then they're going to push them to the moon. So far, even that they'll inject a white athlete into a Black history piece, just because that's how hard they try to push certain people. And that's what we have with Michael Chandler. They could have gone so many different directions with this, like you said. They could have highlighted Black staff on the UFC. There are so many talented people behind the scenes that are of African American descent, that work behind the scenes in the UFC. A couple that come to mind, Heidi Dean. There's a couple behind the cameras on the production crew as well. Like, you could have gone that route if you wanted to, talk Black history. With the father thing, there's two fighters here at Fortis, Jeff Neal and Ryan Spann, both Black fathers in the UFC. Like, you could have gone so many different directions. You could have talked about, the first Black champion in the UFC. You could have talked about so many things with this. How long was that? 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
Yeah, that time of my life that I unfortunately cannot get back.
Yeah, in a piece that absolutely blew my mind so much, I couldn't care enough to score the Yana Kunitskaya Caitlin Vieira fight that came on next, because I was just sitting here like,
yeah,
like I was like, did that really just happen?
I had the exact same experience. Like, I was shell shot for like the next 15-20 minutes and simply just didn't know what to say.
Yeah. And it's mind blowing too that, the amount of people that came out and defended the UFC's actions here, because they immediately took that as an offense that we were attacking white people. No, it's not what we're doing here. You're using a space reserved to acknowledge Black history, and you talk about a white guy who adopted a Black child with no connection to Black history whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. It's just mind-blowingly dumb.
It's amazing. It's so stupid that I feel it's deliberate. Like, it's very difficult for me to just say, oh, this is just a simple oversight, because I think if you put an iota of intelligence into this and into trying to think this through, it sounds like a really bad idea. It doesn't seem like a good idea. And the only people that are jumping on the table and defending this, at least that I've seen on social media, are the nameless, faceless, anonymous accounts with 12 followers that go about saying stupid stuff all the time. The people with the single digit IQs that feel the need to flex them. That's
and as I said, it's those people that got offended. Those are the people that story resonated with, because that's who that story was targeted for. It, like I said a second ago, it was a comfort piece for white people, the white audience, where they didn't want to get smacked in the face with some real black struggle shit that goes on in America. And they, like I said, they could have positioned that and even made white people not feel bad, because you didn't have to talk about black struggle stuff. You could have highlighted a black athlete, just that simple, and talk about his accomplishments. Like, that would have been fine. That would have been so fun.
I talk about,
but no, we go way out in left field,
like beyond left field. Like, talk about Derek Lewis, who the main event winner, who, instead of showcasing a piece with him, getting a Lamborghini, how about a piece about him literally saving lives during Hurricane Harvey? Like, literally saving people.
Yeah.
Risking his physical person to save the lives of strangers. How about that for something to highlight for Black history? How about highlighting the community work that Tyron Woodley has done, trying to open up a gym for inner city youth? How about that? There's so many different ways that this could have gone, and they chose literally the dumbest path possible that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
I certainly hope that Michael Chandler is an excellent father to that young man, and he grows up loved and well provided for, and with the sense of identity that Chandler and his wife were trying to convey, that they hope to instill in him. I certainly hope it all works out for them. And maybe down the line, when that young man has grown up and he has learned his lessons from his father, and he finds himself in his chosen profession, especially if it were professional fighting, and we're going to highlight a Black History Month piece, I'll take a story about his life from his perspective, his journey, not the journey of the white savior. And I'm very glad that you did mention the idea of something to make white people feel good, because I think that's what the society is constantly bombarding us, in particular, us as Black men, the idea of making white people feel good and white people feel safe. There is a reason why we as Black men are told how to conduct ourselves, and the tone of our voice when we're angry, and all sorts of little things that all you egg profile picture, nameless, faceless accounts with 12 followers don't understand, and you'll never understand.
Yeah.
And please, you see my Twitter handle right there. Come, I want to smoke. So go ahead and say something stupid. But these are things that you cannot understand. So when Black people are telling you this is how we feel, you shut the fuck up and don't tell us how we should feel. And that goes for everything.
Exactly. We wear the skin every day. We've been told, don't be the angry Black guy. I've been told that so many times throughout my life, where it's just like, oh, so I can't express emotions when somebody does something wrong to me because I'm a Black guy, and because there's an inherently more hostility that comes along with that when I express my anger, because you feel more fear. It just doesn't make sense to me. But these are the things that we have to grow up with, and thinking about this piece in terms of Michael Chandler, there could have been one possible way they could have saved it, is if they actually showed how Michael Chandler intended to teach this Black son of his how he was going to learn about the quote unquote Black struggle, as he put it in this video. Show him reading Black history, show you with teaching him Black history, like whether it be at the computer or through books or whatever. Put that in the package, not just family selfies and words that you're saying. We need to see what you're doing to make sure that this child of yours understands what it means to be black in America. Because nothing about Michael Chandler on its face says this guy understands Black America. Parlor accounts.
It was on the tip of my tongue. You know it. I mean, yeah, because that's the only knock I have about Michael Chandler on this. I don't know his politics. I don't know what he stands for in his personal life. But I can tell you, if you have a Parler account, it's not looking good, homie. Not looking good at all. So I need answers for that. We need answers for that. But on its surface, him adopting a child that is not biologically his, wonderful. And I wish that family nothing but the best. But I wish whoever at the UFC or whoever at Endeavor said this is a good idea would shut the fuck up forever. Get that black belt and shutting the fuck up, please. This is, you know, I'm reminded of that one conversation we had after one noted racist and goofball, Colby Covington, went on his rant after his last fight. And to feel like, you know, we love mixed martial arts. Obviously, we get paid almost nothing to do a lot of work in support of it. So this is definitely a thing of passion for us. And we are two people who have spent a good amount of time on the mats ourselves and training ourselves as martial artists. So we respect it in multiple ways here. But man, it's rough when you're already one of the few people, the few black people in this sport, from the media side. It's enough to just be in that room and it might be one other person there that looks somewhat like you. That's already enough. That's already enough to deal with. But then to have that reality slapped in your face, to where it's hard to do your job, is a whole nother feeling. You know, that night, I know we were both so angry that it was hard to just talk about a fight and talk about the sport that we love. And that's the same feeling I have now. To have to be distracted from my passion and love for a sport, something that I have dedicated a lot of my time and intellectual effort, physical effort, and money and time and resources and whatnot, to perfect my craft in this. And partly as an escape from just, you know, regular life, but then to have that just thrown in your lap to remind you of what the outside world has to offer you. That's what it feels like. It's a terrible feeling. Something that pisses me off, and I'm just going to share that, and you can call me the angry black man. I don't care. I just don't care.
Yeah, man. It's an unfortunate thing that we have to deal with. And like you said, we kind of get slapped in the face with it out of nowhere, just covering the sport. From the Colby thing, like you said, where there has been no accountability, it seems, about that. You know, calling his colleagues, so to speak, you know, criminals and terrorists, and they were neither. But here we are, forced to just accept that on face value because, hey, it's a guy that the promotion wants to tout, and he's a guy that makes the money, so they're going to let him get off this racist shit with no, at least, public accountability. They're sure he may get a slap on the wrist behind the scenes, but we will never know about that kind of stuff. And thinking back also to a point that you made earlier, making sure that the right faces are in the room, making sure you have a black voice in the room. It just can't be any black voice, though. We got to be clear about that, because there are some black voices that will not and do not understand when they need to speak up when they see something wrong, or like they just don't recognize when it's wrong. You have to have the right black person that's there, that's really with the shits, that will really actually speak up and tell these folks, hey, y'all are wilding right now. Yes, because just having the black skin doesn't always necessarily mean.
Yeah, because we want to make sure we're excluding tap dancing, sambo, goofball ass, mediocre Negroes like Herschel Walker or someone of that ilk.
Right.
So let's make that very clear.
100%. And I'm not saying that there's anybody, like I said, I don't know who's in that room making the decisions. It could be a couple of black people. I don't know them. I don't know their names. I don't know their faces. I'm just saying, in general, it needs to be a black face that knows the experience, that will not hesitate to speak up and will tell folks when they are wilding. Because obviously, even if there was that black person in the room here, they either didn't raise their voice, they didn't recognize it, or maybe they weren't even brought in on the conversation. There's a couple of different things that could have happened here, but somebody dropped the ball along the way. And, you know, I don't expect an answer to this from the UFC. They're going to just sweep this under the rug, you know, like they did that Trump doc that they put on Fight Pass that's now gone. Yeah, they're just going to sweep it under the rug. Let's not acknowledge that that mistake ever happened. Hopefully they learn from it and see all of this backlash that is hitting their feeds, all their mentions. Hopefully they learn from it. But, you know, I still don't think they're listening, because I don't know how many times we have to make videos like this explaining positions.
No, I doubt this will get upon the ears that need to be listening. But best we can do is put that out there for the world to know exactly what we think and where we stand. So if you don't like it, come at me, bro. It's all good. So yeah, man. I think I just want to wrap things up, I guess, by saying representation matters. This is why. This is exactly why. And don't tell black people how to feel. Don't do that. I probably should just stop talking now, because I have nothing left to say. Yeah.
It's a good spot right there.
Yeah, good spot. Good spot. It's woo.